From the time of our arrival in Aotearoa, Māori have created a unique architectural history. Our structures not only house people, but also our dreams, our fundamental needs, and our histories. So what can we tell about ourselves from these buildings? What do they say to us? It's a question I've asked myself constantly. I'm Ro Hoskins, and as a director of an architectural practice, understanding the stories held within the walls of our buildings has been a lifelong obsession. In this series, we're going to take you on a journey to explore not just our architectural structures, but also the social and cultural histories from which our buildings arise. We'll ask, what is Māori architecture? And celebrate some of our most stunning buildings. When we first came from Hawaii, we brought a long tradition of whakairo with us. But here in Aotearoa, the tradition was able to blossom to a whole new level. The wood that grows here is straight-grained, much easier to work than the cross-grained timbers of Polynesia. The stone here was harder and made for far better adzes and carving tools. The migration to this new land heralded a golden age of carving. Over time, great carved meeting houses were created. Magnificent pātaka were carved to showcase the tribe's wealth and status. But not long ago, there was a time when whakairo rākau was nearly lost forever. The race was in crisis from the negative impacts of colonisation, and many of our traditional art forms were on the verge of extinction. Whakairo rākau, an art form so central to our culture, was almost forgotten. But in some areas like Te Arawa and Te Tairāwhiti, carvers and communities kept the art of whakairo rākau alive. And from this, there was one man who had a vision to revive the art of carving and was willing to fight for its survival. In the early years of the 20th century, Sir Apirana Ngata saw that whakairo rākau was in real crisis. The search for a solution brought Ngata to Rotorua, where he was fundamental in persuading the government to create an entirely new kind of school dedicated to preserving the dying art form.
It was seen that the arts at that time were dying out, and if they didn't do something very quickly, well, it would have been gone. So they established here in Rotorua at Ohinemutu the first school. But my role really goes back to when we first started. The master said, you come here to learn this art, you've come here to pass it on for others. I never forgot that. So that's been my passion, to carry it on and pass this on to others so that it will never get lost. I realised that a lot of our knowledge of whakairo and other important things of Māori tanga had been lost. It had been taken to the grave with our old people. We can't afford to do that in this day and age. We need to retain as much as possible. And that was my goal, retain as much as possible for the next generations coming.
Clive learned the art from John Taiapa, one of the original students at the school, a tohunga whakairo and master builder.
John and his brother Pine worked on numerous meeting houses all over the country. So fortunately we were lucky enough to get some of those techniques here. So what you see in this book is some of the diagrams and drawings of some of them. How to fit the popo, the ruawhetu, or the gap, how the heke fits into it, and so on. But he had a vast knowledge of that, not only of modern meeting house construction, but that of the ancient way of building houses as well. If you did a mistake, he'd show you how to fix it, and then he would say, well, there's about 3 or 4, maybe 6 ways of getting out of that mess, so here's how you do it. Those that don't make the mistakes will learn nothing, and that's what's his approach to it.
At Te Puia, techniques from the original master carvers like John Taiapa are still passed down to today's students. The skills that are taught here reach back to the time of Sir Apirana Ngata's original school, together with a range of modern techniques.
First year of training they do things like tool technology. We take them back 1,000 years in time, so they learn how stone tools were used, where they got the stone from, how they made these tools. Takes you up into traditional stone tools, very famous ones that were used in ancient times.
In establishing the school, Ngata believed that it was not just whakairo rākau that had to be saved, but importantly, the individual tribal styles.
One of the things that we have in the school in the second year of training, we teach all of the different tribal styles, so that young men coming in from different areas will learn their own tribal style, and then they can go back and teach it in their own area.
Takitimu Wharenui in Wairoa is one of the largest wharenui the School of Māori Arts and Crafts undertook with Ngata's supervision. It's obviously a really large whare, given some of the earlier houses in the area.
Aye, and the carvings in itself that depict all the iwis in the country, it has to be grand to fit them all in.
Over 70 years now and still in amazing condition inside.
Well, yeah, considering everything's original, nothing's really been touched. The doors, the windows, nothing's been touched.
Over a period of 16 years, Ngata was responsible for the completion of more than 40 building projects. And Ngata was a regular visitor?
Very regular. That was part of his role, according to the nannies, was that he would constantly be over to check up on the work and to ensure that it was within the time frame.
After the initial drive to start training whakairo rākau students, the school widened its scope to include training women in the woven arts. Around 500 women participated in the classes that were designed to save the art of tukutuku, and many carried on to work on takitimu wharenui.
They were chosen as part of a group of women that came here to do the weaving, and they were taken also to Wellington to learn the art first before they came back. So it was quite a number of years before they were able to get in here and do the panels.
Some of the women told tales of Ngata's obsessively passionate supervision. Everything had to be perfect for the grand opening.
He was such a perfectionist that he oversaw everything from the carvings to the tukutukus, and that his role was also to ensure that nothing but the best was done. So they spoke of him and how one night he came out and they completed a panel, and that he wasn't quite happy with the result. So he grabbed the knife and put the knife through their work. We have some of the original pillowcases that were embroidered, and from what was said to us, it was 1935 that these were done in preparation for the celebration and the opening. But if you look at it, what you can see on the outside is the same as what you can see on the inside of the pillowcase if you were to have a good look. But that was the effort and the amount of work that went into ensuring that the linen was done in a specific way, that the quilts, that the whāraki, all in preparation for this marae. So you don't see it anymore.
By 1938, Takitimu Wharenui was complete, and thousands of people from around the country attended the opening.
It was quite overwhelming, the amount of whānau that had come, just the amount of kai and the preparation. They were just stunned by the prominent people that turned up, like from other iwis, and I suppose until that day happened, they didn't realise the role that they'd played and what it would produce.
The grand opening was presided over by King Koroki.
He refused to walk through a door between the legs of a woman because rongamai wahine is above the door. So a side room was built to ensure that he could open the marae, and that's how we opened it.
So rongamai wahine, quite a significant ancestress for the area?
She is, especially Mahia area, rongamai wahine, and for us in Wairoa as well, because we're all connected to hence why she is above the door. And that is her rightful place, above the door there.
Takitimu still stands today as one of Ngata's great legacies. Building on Ngata's success in his quest to revitalise carving traditions, government funding became tied to the requirement for these buildings to be carved. This presented a problem for the Ngai Tahu Hapu when they came to build a new church and Wharenui at Ōtākau Marae. Ngai Tahu have never had the same sort of carving tradition as many North Island iwi, and by the 1930s had no whakairo or carver to draw on. But undeterred, an innovative solution was found. The story of how Ōtākau Marae came to have a carved Wharenui and church begins in 1890, when a collection of carvings were donated to the Otago Museum by Dr. Thomas Hocken. The exact origin of these carvings is unknown. For a long time it was thought that they came from a wharenui on the east coast known as Tūmoana Kotore. However, it's now considered much more likely that they were purchased off Chief Karaitiana Takamoana from the Hawke's Bay for a whare that was never completed. What is agreed is that the carvings are definitely the work of Ngāti Porou carvers. At the time the people of Ōtākau were looking to build a new wharenui and church, they made a very pragmatic decision to cast these Ngāti Porou carvings in concrete and use them instead of new timber carvings. This is how these carvings became part of the first carved church and wharenui in the 20th century to be built in the South Island. Tamatea Wharenui, the church beside it, and the Waharoa have all been constructed using cast concrete carvings. So this is Tamatea.
Yes.
Would have fooled a lot of people with these whakairo here.
We have over the years, definitely. People would show up and they'd be absolutely blown away by this. Beautiful classic Māori house. Get a little closer, quite surprised by the concrete. And then get a little closer to have a talk and realise that actually the carvings aren't from here, they're from another iwi, they've been stored in the museum, the process that was gone through, so it is quite a tale, really.
Yeah, so they've achieved an amazing level of detail here.
The thing that fascinates me is that the quality, the lack of deterioration. I mean, something like this down here is about as bad as it gets in the whole structure. Yeah. And so very, very robust.
And it's getting some pretty severe weather patterns.
In sunny Otago, that's true. And the people in the city came up with it themselves. You know, it was Pākehā groups in the city that designed this and then casting the concrete into those moulds. But ultimately they perfected it.
I guess there's the connection with the Art Deco period too, because architects in that time were used to trying to deal with motifs, but much more limited, of course. And when they got to this, it was like motifs everywhere.
Yeah, true. That's a good point, actually. And also, I suppose a lot of concrete went through that Art Deco period too, wasn't there? So they would have, timing was right.
So these are the plaster finishes that they've been able to achieve.
Yes. Seem to be much more detailed. Obviously, an easier material to work with.
And again, very lifelike, even probably even more than the concrete, feeling very much like timber.
Well, it's so detailed. Of course, you can see all the adze marks, you know, right into the timber. So it's actually captured everything.
Even the imperfections.
Yeah, that's right.
And three-dimensional kōwhaiwhai, that's quite unique.
Yeah. It's interesting they decided to do that instead of just get the paintbrush out, but it looks really good.
And the relationship with the church is interesting. You've got this sort of little ravine in between the two and a bridge, so it's almost like the mana of the church is allowed to be what it is, and this has got its own mana.
Yes, yep. Well, the first building here was the church and the missioner's house. But they do complement each other very well now.
Built to replace the old weatherboard church, the current church opened in 1941 as part of the ongoing Waitangi Centennial celebrations. It was a big event at Otako Marae, attended by many local people and dignitaries. 89-year-old Jean Duff still clearly remembers the day.
I was in the concert party for the opening of the church. Yes, it was a big occasion. There were people everywhere. I must have been about 15 or 16, round about that age. I was a teenager anyway. It was so long ago.
How do you feel about having such a special church and, having all these carvings inside?
Well, I suppose being at that age, I never even thought about it. It was just, you just took it for granted that they were there. It was very nice, we liked it. But I hadn't even seen, I don't think I'd ever seen a wooden carving before that. So I didn't know the difference, really. And it was a practical solution to the problem. Our people wanted carvings, but they couldn't afford it.
Did you get married in town?
No, I got married here. And funny thing, I just remembered when I came in. When we came in the door, the edge of the carpet was come up, and when I stepped forward, my foot went under the edge, and I stepped on the front of my dress. And my father's pulling me. I'm trying to, because I was stuck. I couldn't move. And my father's pulling me. He thought I'd got cold feet. Oh, I often thought I'd like to do that again so I could do it properly. Because by the time I got up here, I was like this. It was awful.
It's a beautiful church which is now just used for special occasions. One of the most impressive features of the interior are the LED light windows that are representative of traditional tukutuku designs. These are complemented by tukutuku panels in the altar. The Wharenui has also incorporated tukutuku-influenced windows into its construction. The church exterior includes a pātaka-like structure which acts as a bell tower. It's believed these carvings were cast from a pātaka also held in Otago Museum. I guess as you grew older, you realise, there are very few carved houses around, and I've got one.
That's right. That's right. I think it's helped our identity in some respects, having such a Māori-looking house that's perhaps caused the different behaviours. Sure. Created a bit more formality. If it looks like a bit of a shed or a community hall, then sometimes you behave more like you're in a community hall.
Yes, so the architecture has kind of enculturated the people a little bit.
Yep, I'd say it most definitely has.
Traditionally, the life of a whare was like that of an ancestor. And when it aged and approached the end of its life, it was taken away and buried. Nowadays, we tend to want to preserve our whare and keep the memories of our tupuna alive. For many hapu, the process of restoring these whare has become as much of a journey as for those building new ones. At Lake Rotuaira near Tūrangi, or Tūkaupā, stands by the Wairehu stream in the shadow of Tongariro. The wharepuni, or kahukura, was built by Taringa Te Atua of Te Arawa in 1893. The construction followed the classic Ngāti Tūwhare Tō style and also represented the changes in art forms to include paintings. This whare has some very unusual and beautiful variations to its decoration, a decorative style rarely seen today. When James Cowan visited Okahukura in 1901, he recorded his reactions to the wharepuni. The front is carved in a grotesque and highly realistic native fashion, and the wide slab panels in the porch and inside the house bear black and white paintings, the work of some wandering Pākehā artist. So Te Māori, this is the kāinga?
Yes, this is Papakainga o Tuko, 1905. Here, of course, we're Ngāti Hikairo, Tongariro is our maunga, Rotoaira is our moana, the marae is Ōtuko. The crater there is Te Māori, and myself and the crater were named after the very same kuia whose name is carried on the crater there. It was quite a large papakainga. There were many people who lived here.
And the origin of the paintings, what's your understanding of them?
Well, we were always told that at the time that the whare was built, in 1893 it was opened, two Pākehā gentlemen just arrived. Apparently they were on the run from the law. At that time, the people were not only constructing the whare, but they were clearing a lot of area for sheep farms, and they could do with the extra help. And I guess it was their gesture of thanks to the home people to make this little contribution all the way through the po throughout the entire whare.
Inside the Wharenui, the Pautoko Manawa represents Tiriwa, a renowned warrior ancestor. And all around this tūpuna, the Popo incorporate these unique paintings of mysterious origin. Some of the paintings depict images from around Okahukura. Other images show scenes of life and landscapes from around the motu. The Popo paintings are all completed in the same style, using a monochromatic but painterly understanding of perspective and the effect of light. The detail of the paintings is extremely intricate. The technical qualities of the paintings identify them as work of European artists, or possibly Māori trained in European painting techniques. Questions remain about the identity of the painters. Were they classically trained European artists travelling through the area? Were they ship jumpers on the run? But there's no question that this is a special and unique Wharenui, and for the local hapu, it was vital that their house be preserved. The whare itself, it's undergone some recent restoration, and it must have been quite a journey for you to be part of that restoration process.
It was amazing, really. I felt an incredible privilege, you know, there was a real sense of privilege to actually work with the whare and with some of the whānau at quite an intimate level. You got a sense of, you know, a real intimacy with the whare. Dean Whiting from the Historic Places Trust sort of gave us that expert eye on things in terms of repairing, in terms of the processes to strip away the many layers of paint that had been built up, you know, applied over the years. And, you know, taking it right back to its bare boards, it really was almost returning back to the very beginning of the house itself. It was a privilege, an absolute privilege. Yeah.
And you sort of, I guess you felt much more connected to your tūpuna that had created the whare in the first place. You
really felt them right there with you. They were right with us all the way through. Really, you know, there was a real sense of that.
The restoration really was really located in the Maho here. And you uncovered the original kokowai underneath.
We decided that we would actually go with that softer terracotta colour because that was the colour that we found under all the many, many layers. Yeah.
So that would have been the original shark oil and kokowai.
I'm picking that would be so.
So the, I guess the other thing about the Maho here is that with the influence of Rātana, there were some changes made?
Yeah, there were, and it was, you know, when I was up on the scaffolding doing this part of the tāhuhu, it was like, because I hadn't really noticed it before, and absolutely up close, nose to nose, I saw that the genitals had been completely edged out, cut out. You know, which to me was a bit of a shame, but then, you know, it was obviously the wish of the people at the time that Rātana came, and he was up here in 1931.
And today, is it still a Rātana stronghold around here?
Absolutely, yes. It is. Yes, Whakamoemiti is held about every 3 months. They rotate around the different Rātana marae in the whole of Tūwharetoro here.
This fine old house with its rich history and dramatic location represents a significant period in Māori architecture, a time when people were beginning to experiment with new ideas and new art forms. Its unique character and dramatic location have impressed for well over a century. With the loving restoration undertaken, it will continue to impress well into the future.
Supporting local content so you can see more of New Zealand on air.